Hey folks, this is Shane. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. 3 months ago, I put together this little battery box using a 30 amp hour LiPo battery. And I've been using a fair amount on Parks on the Air activations and a couple camping trips. I think I got a good shakedown on it. So in this video, I want to quickly go over the details on how I put this together and why, how it's been working for me so far, and if I could do it over again, what would I do different? All right, this battery box built was based on a 30 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery that I had. And I purchased this hard case from Apache to build the box. And as you can probably see, it's pretty straightforward. Not a lot of thrills on it. I kept it pretty simple, yet it does have enough features for what I'm wanting to do with it. So overall, I think it's a pretty balanced build. Not only on features and capability, but on size as well. When I say it's a good balance on size, not only I'm talking its overall dimensions and weight, but the battery capacity itself. It's a good sweet spot for me, where the thing is compact, it doesn't take up much space, and it's easy enough to carry around, yet it has the features and the capacity I need for what I built it for, mostly parks on the air and camping. I kept the features of this box pretty simple. 2-position power pull outlet, a USB-A and a USB-C connection, along with a voltmeter, and then the ubiquitous 12-volt cigarette lighter style plug. Then on the back, I have one more USB connection that I use for solar. More on that in a minute. When I open up the box, you can see the two main components of the internals: the charge controller for solar and the battery itself. The battery is my Amped Outdoors 30 amp hour LiPo battery. I've been using this thing for a few years, and I figured this would be a perfect size for this kit. Fits in nicely, and no complaints so far. For the solar, I have this Jenison GV10 charge controller. It's the MPPT style, so it does not make any noise at all. I've had this thing hooked up to solar while running the radio. No interference at all. Very happy with this thing. You may notice that it is on, so there's a slight parasitic draw from this thing. It's pretty low. I'm not too worried about it. If I'm going to store this long term, I can disconnect this. I'll show you how in a minute here. The Apache case comes with this pluck and pick foam. Basically, it's little small square sections. This allows you to pick out cavities like this to fit equipment exactly the way you want it, or at least as close as you can get with the size of the squares. Once I got the foam set up the way I wanted it with this layout, I sprayed it with plastic dip. That gave it a nice coating to hold everything together, and will hopefully make it last a very long time. Now if I take the top layer off, you can see I didn't bother giving the inside layer a coating, or the bottom layer a coating, since it's going to be left the way it is. And I got a few pieces that were kind of loose fitting, just tucked in. The wiring job I did was very simple. I have 2 inline fuses coming off the battery, and all the connections go into this Anderson power pole distribution block. I use power poles for all my connections to keep this thing as modular as I can while still being a standalone unit. That way, if I decide to pull something out in the field, say I want to use the solar charge controller for a different application, I can simply just disconnect the power poles and pull it out of this box. No tools needed. I really like the idea of being able to do field repairs without any tools, or make upgrades quickly. So keeping this thing as modular as possible by using the Anderson power poles just seemed like the right thing for me to do. All right, so what would I do differently if I was going to build this over again? Battery wise, I would keep it about the same. I think the 30 amp hours is a good fit for me. I could see possibly going with 60 amp hours. This box is sized to where I could fit 2 of these 30 amp hour batteries in there with enough room for everything. Hook them up in parallel and I'd be twice the power. But everything I've done so far, the 30 amp hours is more than enough. Even a 3-day camping trip with ham radio involved, it held up just fine. Things I would do differently though would probably not mount my connection points the way I did. What I would do would probably be on one side, have the cigarette lighter and the USB connections with the voltmeter. Then on the opposite side, I would have both of these sockets that I have for Anderson power pole. I would have 2 of them, and chances are I'd probably go with the 2-position one. So I had 4 Anderson power poles off of this side. One I would dedicate to solar the way I have it, and the other thing would just be regular Anderson power pole connections. The reason why I'd have them on the opposite side is because I've been setting my radio on top of this when I do Parks on the Air from the cab of my truck or a picnic table. This is about the perfect size for my 891 to sit on, and this added height is really nice. It puts the radio right in my vision, easy to manipulate the controls, see the screen. And with the power pole connection on the back of my radio, it would make sense that I could have this feature on the front with my voltmeter and USB charge points so I could hook up a tablet or my phone to it and see everything. And just run the wire off the back of the radio into the back of this battery box. And if I have a solar panel set up, have that set up in front of me. Again, feeding in here. Just a little bit nicer wire management. That's a personal thing. That's about the only thing I would do layout-wise differently. Another thing I would do is skip using these face plates. I thought it would dress it up and make it look a little nicer, but they turned out to be a little more cumbersome than I thought. You can see here that, well, if I would have took my time, it would have been nicer, but I didn't get the hole for the Anderson power poles to line up with this plate perfectly. Therefore, the protective cover that came with this fitting didn't fit underneath this plate, so I lost that. Having 2 connection points on either side, I don't have to worry about keeping things too in line. They would look fine. If they're off a little bit, nobody would notice. And that way, all my connection points would have the nice wire-tight fitting on it. Granted, it won't be truly wire-tight, but it'll be good enough to keep the rain off. So there you go, a little more detail on how I put this thing together, how it's been working out for me so far, and the things I do differently. Most of the things I do different are pretty minor. I'm quite happy with the way this thing turned out. I guess my biggest regret is that I didn't build this thing a long time ago. The battery box is a pretty practical thing to have, and it's a fun thing to put together. So, with that, thanks for watching, folks, and I'll catch you on the next one. 73.